Picture your team being able to map out the external attack surface as it grows and see the same attack vectors as a hacker does. Most tools out there do asset discovery, but stop there. Enter Detectify. It takes an inventory of exposed web assets and automates vulnerability testing for security misconfigurations, expiring subdomains, and risks in third-party software. Here's the cool part. They crowdsource payloads from leading ethical hackers. It finds bugs you actually want to fix and finds them in time. Start a free 2-week trial by visiting securityweekly.com/Detectify. Go hack yourself. Workloads protected by VMware are the safest workloads in the multi-cloud. Private cloud, public cloud, any cloud. Stronger, with distributed protection to the API and everything east-west, inside, and cross-cloud. Stronger, with 3 layers of detection, trusting nothing and seeing everything, even the best hidden bad actors. Stronger, with an SE Labs AAA certified advanced NDR that brings the multi-cloud together for the win. You've got workloads, we've got security. VMware Security. Simply stronger. Visit securityweekly.com/VMware to learn more.
Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Don't miss any of your favorite Security Weekly content. Visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to any of our podcast feeds and have all new episodes downloaded right to your phone. You can also join our mailing list, Discord server, and follow us on social media and our streaming platforms. All right, our second interview today is sponsored by Core Security. Pablo Zurro, product manager. I've made that mistake so many times since I started a job as a product manager. I keep calling myself a project manager. Very different.
Most of
as
us
Pablo would
started
probably. Yeah, you'd probably agree with me, Pablo. How often do you get called a project manager?
Always the same kind of thing, and we all started, or most of us started there, doing project management. So it's difficult, to switch to product management. At least the wording.
Yeah, so we're both experts with Gantt charts. Basically, that's what we do. We're PMPs, right?
Yeah.
So I messed up the intro there, Pablo. But welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly. You lead product management for Core Security's cyber threat prevention solutions, correct?
Yeah, basically I do. Yeah, I lead this product management side for Core Security cyber threat solutions, especially Core Impact is like the main product that I'm leading. And I'm also working in some other products related to proactive security. I'm working a bit with Cobalt Strike too, which is a well-known tool from our company, and also with the vulnerability assessment product that we have there. So yeah, right. That's what I'm doing.
All very closely associated and adjacent with each other, right? Like I imagine Core Impact and Cobalt Strike both have payloads, right? Like there's some overlap there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually it's the goal of the product is a bit different. So it's like Core Impact is more oriented into penetration testing. So the payload that we have is much more like static. So it's not as much configurable and customizable as the one from Cobalt Strike. But yeah, basically it's Core Impact is in its heart another command and control framework.
Right. Yeah. So talking about building a proactive security strategy, I love these guides that you have. In fact, Paul Asadorian and I talked about this years ago. I did this whole campaign around basically saying a lot of companies are having pen tests that are really not ready to have pen tests. And in fact, on the I don't know about you, Tyler, but for me, it was kind of depressing to go into a company that's clearly not ready for a pen test. Like maybe the first couple of times it's fun, like getting in that easy. Then after a while, you're like, come on, guys. Like, like there's not much for me to do here. You get so much work to do.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. I think the approach you guys are taking and even looking at the PDF that you've released, kind of helping organizations determine that maturity and their needs around pen test. This is needed in the community. This is needed in enterprises all over the place, and it helps us from the offensive side, so we don't get bored. We don't see the same findings. We don't, provide half remediations just because it's not challenging. Like this is a great way to get a better return on your investment from a money standpoint, and know where your testing should be security based on a lot of the recommendations you provided in here. So this is very simple to read and very nicely laid out.
Yeah, basically it's something that started there. So we were talking with our services team because we're doing this pen testing engagements also from the services side, and we saw that they were being hired in a lot of companies, but it was not useful. It was too easy. So from the waiting room, they could connect to the guest Wi-Fi and take ownership of the domain controller. So that was not challenging, and it was completely useless for the companies. And looking at the products that we had in the company and see how our users were basically using them, so we found that it could be really great to go together with our customers and help them go through the journey of security maturity. So it doesn't make sense to start from the roof. So doing engaging, red teaming, and doing adversary simulation if you haven't done the basics. So basically, there are like gradual steps to mature, and there's one point where a company is secured enough to take advantage of a adversary simulation test or even a pen testing.
And I think it's a great opportunity to educate the customer and to take them through that journey, because you have this series of products that kind of, guide them down that path, guide them through that journey of, finding the low hanging fruit, taking care of that, and then moving on to, to more mature processes and services. So, so do you deliver different kinds of pen tests based on where they are in that model, or is there like a clear line where you're like, okay, once we get you to this point, then you can have like the most basic pen test, or do you kind of have like a pen test for every level of crawl, walk, run?
For the first level, I wouldn't call it pen test, because what we do is basically help them in their vulnerability assessment. So we have a team working with our vulnerability management tools. So they go there, they install the scanners, they do an assessment, a scan, and they find the vulnerabilities, and they provide a report to the customer. So that would be like the lowest level of services that we provide from the offensive security side. And then we provide like the normal or the usual pen testing services where we look for the low hanging fruit related to vulnerabilities, and we try to exploit them and to access the network and see where we can reach easily just through generally patched or through vulnerabilities and exploits that with a published patch that could be missing in the company. So we show them where they could be and where they are really, demonstrating them where we can arrive with that. And then we provide like the top level services with red teaming simulations and adversary simulations and all kinds of tests with a white hat, a black hat, and gray hat in the middle. So we do everything. We believe, or most of the tests that we're doing in that step are following like the assume breach approach, because it really takes a lot of time to access a well-protected network from the outset, and at the end it's really expensive to pay a team to spend a lot of time trying to access the network from the outside. So with that model, what we try is to understand how the network topology is built, where we can access using the techniques that the bad guys are using, and we try to move around with that. So we're doing the same thing they do, assuming that they are inside of the network, which is something that will happen at some point. So basically, we try to educate the companies we work with in all the prevention, detection, and response models. So at the end, we would like to pen test the prevention controls. We want to unit test the detection controls in a specific engagement, and then through the red teaming, what we want to do is to test the response processes. So depending on the maturity level of each company, we have different proposals, and we help them in different ways through that maturity journey, or risk management journey, or however we want to call it.
Right. So I have kind of a multi-part question here, and for people listening or watching, if you go to the show notes for today, securityweekly.com/ESW265, for this interview, there are 2 links to PDFs here, and that's what we're referencing in this discussion. And so you've got these maturity levels here, 0 through 5, and I'm kind of curious of what you've seen, and both you and Tyler, in pen testing. But in my experience, I see a lot of people that get stuck at level 3 and never quite get to level 4, where they're running vulnerability scans, and then they just end up spending like 75% of their time, these security teams, and just a whole lot of labor on chasing vulnerabilities and issues with patching processes and patch management, and they never quite get to that next level of maturity where they can effectively prioritize stuff. They're comfortable ignoring stuff that isn't important, that they know it's not important, and start focusing on, doing simulations, focusing on, okay, what kind of adversaries would target us, that more strategic level of thinking and risk management. So first part of the question, do you both, you first, Pablo, see this as well? And then the second part of the question is going to be, how do you get them out of that rut?
Yeah, there's a lot of people who get stuck on that because their goal is to solve the vulnerabilities and not to make their company more secure. So it's like they're trying to run after the patches and try to have them patch. And at the end, it's impossible. So the bad guys are running more than the vulnerability scanners. So we need another level, but they are like trying to, instead of trying to improve their processes, what they do is to try to catch the testers. So they build all their processes all around not having those vulnerabilities and having clean reports instead of having secure companies. So that's really time consuming, and it's difficult to make them change that, because it's difficult to assume from the customer level that you're not providing a fully clean report when it's like your goal.
It sounds like you're saying they have the wrong KPIs, that they're focused on the wrong metrics.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's that they're looking on the number of vulnerabilities and not on the criticalness of the vulnerabilities, of the exploitability of those vulnerabilities, of where they are, those vulnerabilities, because it's not the same to have a vulnerable asset in the DMZ or outside from the corporate network, or having maybe a low priority vulnerability inside of the network, and in a machine that has access to the domain controller, it's much more critical than a high level vulnerability outside. So they are like focusing a lot on the CVSS scoring and on the threat scores that some vulnerability scanners provide, and they are fighting against that instead of taking a step back, looking at their environment, looking at their processes, and try to improve them as a whole, instead of trying to clean their reports or catching the testers.
Yeah, I think a lot of that stems from kind of that old mindset, right? Of, exploits were how attackers got in. There's a lot more focus now on misconfigurations, abuse of credentials, leveraging and chaining together different attacks. Typically, exploits could be used, maybe not be used. Like, it really doesn't matter from an attacker's standpoint whether there's vulnerabilities there or not. They'll still find a way through, whether that's through creds and leveraging dwell time to gain access and make those moves. So I think a lot of the problem there is the offensive side. We have not done a great job of articulating the language that they need to understand, which is, what is the risk to the business? How do we secure the assets that actually matter to the business? And if we are going to secure those assets to the business, we need to focus on the holistic approach of all of the aspects of security, which involves people, which involves processes, and involves technology. It's usually not a technology problem within inside of these networks. It is usually some form of people issue or process issue and a lack of resources in order to address that for the specific business need. And so I think as soon as we start to articulate that better and get the language changed so that they're not hunting for the pen testers, which a lot of places still will and still are, but attackers are still going to get into those places and still abuse them. So we've got to get that business process and business language down and really provide the value to the customer around, not just the vulnerabilities, but the misconfiguration, and get that mindset shift to a security culture within inside the organization, so it's not focused so much on a single metric.
I completely agree with that. It's basically that they are focusing. They think that actually it's like the old mindset where they thought that with a firewall they were completely protected from the outside. It's like they rely on technology for things that are not technology. So there's people, there are processes, and at the end the attackers or the bad guys are advancing a lot and have a lot of techniques to access the environment and to take benefit from users that are not taking enough care of their emails or the links that they click, or the USB that they find in the parking lot, and they plug it into their computers. So yeah, it's not only technology and detection and just being free of vulnerabilities is not the goal. Is to try to protect holistically all the company and all the risks. And this proactive security approach, I think that it helps to understand that part. And we wanted to put like a black over white those concepts and try to help the companies to understand where they are and how we can help with that.
And to me, just thinking about this, I think a lot of the solution is going to be a shift in leadership thinking as well, because like a lot of these folks, they're hired specifically to play vulnerability whack-a-mole. Like that's the role that they're hired for. And to shift that, you do kind of have to change their roles, and they need permission to not continue playing that game, because that's what keeps them employed, right? Like, so they're going to keep doing that until somebody tells them, you know what, we're going to try a different strategy here.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of changing that. So it's like the upper levels of the companies, they are starting to integrate security in their day-to-day life. So before it was like a department, a group of nerds, if there was any in the company, that nobody was listening to, and when they were asking for things. And now the top levels are a bit more scared of what's happening all around, and there are more and more attacks, more and more breaches. The reputation of the companies is something that is touched when a breach is published. So those top higher levels, they are more and more aware of that, and they are investing more and more on those processes, not only on products, but they hire people that know how to do that and how to change that and how to discover new risks, and not only discover vulnerabilities and report over them. I think it's something that is changing in the last years, I would say.
Yeah, so that kind of dovetails into my next question. Again, for both you and Tyler, are you seeing kind of that shift, where some of these organizations are ready to have their detection capabilities tested, and instead of the pen test being something where the pen tester comes in, does a bunch of stuff, gets domain admin, nobody notices they're even there until they send you the report, where it's more active, I guess, on the blue team side. So more of, maybe red team, purple team exercises where the defenders are actively responding to the attack. Is that becoming more common, or is that still fairly niche at this point?
So it's something that I think it has changed in the last couple of years, or at least it's something that we noticed in the last couple of years, that that cybersecurity is more mainstream. So it's in the news all the time that the company A has been hacked or company B has had a breach, and those executives they don't want to be in the news. So at the end, they are learning a lot, and they are trying to understand how that works to improve their processes. And here I'm talking about processes. It's something that they were not doing before. They were just buying more and more products because they thought that that part of the technology was enough, and they didn't have the people to operate it. And now it's like they buy tools because they need them, and they need enterprise level tools, but they also hire the people with the skills to operate them. And at the end, it's where they get benefit from all that investment. So I think that yeah, it's something that it's kind of shifting, and we're seeing more and more even in companies that were not traditionally doing pen testing. Now they are starting to do it. So before, something like a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, we were seeing it was especially financial, insurance, and those kind of companies. And now healthcare, for example, is another vertical that is improving a lot those processes, and they are changing their cybersecurity approach to protect themselves because they have really valuable information that the bad guys want. So I would say yes, it's something that is changing and evolving and improving.
And I think we don't have to provide as much impact now to get the upper level management, the buy-in, the budget. I think what we're really struggling with now that we've got that, stream main understanding of what cybersecurity is, and it is important. Now we're really trying to get to the efficiency stage of being able to tune and do things proactively that actually matter. We have a lot of blinky boxes. We've got a lot of products out there. Everybody's kind of gotten that. What we're running into is the integration between products to match the maturity of the organization and have the correct resources with not only talent but scale to monitor, watch, tune, and respond to those particular integrations and tools to build an effective defense in-depth strategic platform and program. We're really at that point where places are getting much better, but they have so much to deal with, and our networks are not getting any less complex. So we're just adding on to that, but we're trying to get to the place where we're efficient enough to manage all of those pieces and assets and tools that we have available to us now. And once we start to get that tuned and continually expand that resource, that's when we'll really start to see a massive increase in real security and a drop in the breaches. But that disparate gap between companies doing this well and doing this right is going to continue to get bigger and bigger. The ones that are doing it well and right, you'll not see them breached. You'll see more of the ones that are not taking this seriously begin to fall back into that category.
So what I'm hearing is the tools are catching pen testers, but the people aren't noticing that the tools are catching pen testers.
Yep, that's a big part of it. I mean, you have alert fatigue. You've got the timing in which the ingestion happens, whether they're monitoring and getting visibility on the right things, whether those tools are actually tuned to detecting real attacks, or if those tools are tuned to specific IOCs of pen testers and tooling there. So we really have to be careful about getting stuck in that and moving to the heuristic-based platform where we're looking at things that actually detect attacks and not just pen tests or tools.
Yeah, and kind of assessment that really resonates with me is, practicing with your actual tools. Doing scenario-based testing with your actual tools. I mean, it's great to do. I've seen teams that go off to conferences and they do CTFs together, and that's great. But generally, you're not doing that on your day job products and tools and things like that. And yeah. When we look at a lot of breach postmortems, what we see are people trying to figure out how to really use their tools for the first time, and are being challenged to use them effectively. So So yeah, Pablo, I guess thrown back to you, is that something, are we seeing assessments shift to emphasize that? I mean, is that where things like purple team testing are really focused, like making sure people have effective processes and know how to use their tooling?
So it's something where we try to help them with that, because when you go to customers, sometimes they tell you, hey, I have this tool, and that tool. And it's like, okay, you have those tools. Do you know how to use them? Do you know what they're for? So do you have any process where you need those tools? Because at the end, the tools are tools, and somebody can use CoverStrike or Core Impact, and others will use PowerShell or just a script that they did on their own that does the same thing. So at the end, there's, I think, that the companies are starting to understand that, and they are looking for those behaviors and those those attacks indicators of compromise, instead of just fingerprints or the signature of a specific tool. And they are changing how they detect those products. And also the companies working on the defensive side, like EDRs and antiviruses, even if they have specific detectors for CoverStrike, for example, they are improving a lot, and they are doing the offensive teams to work more and more difficult with the detections and the prevention, especially because some time ago there was only detection. The blue teams were getting like tons of messages or events in their systems that it was really almost impossible to follow up with it, and they had they could do the postmortem of a breach because they had all the events that they could have detected during the attack, but they didn't, because whether they didn't know how to use the tools, there was alert fatigue, there was million of events that they couldn't check. And I think that this is changing. Also, the tools are helping, and those guys are really looking for those indicators of attack instead of just checking logs. So I think that with all those breaches, all the improvements on the offensive side, I wouldn't say offensive security side, because the bad guys are also helping to increase the awareness and to increase the sophistication of the attacks. It's making those blue teams and purple teams better. So the tools and the teams are getting better and better, and that makes the attackers to be better and better. And it's like a course. But I think that now they are fighting to improve their processes and not just the tools. So I think it's something that is changing, and that goes a bit better from the defensive side. And those purple team exercises, they also help to do that, and to continuously challenge the blue team with internal red teams, or doing exercises every now and then. I think it really helps them to understand how that is working, and what they should expect from the real bad guys.
And I think you said it best. You kind of summarized things best during our prep call for this podcast when you said, "Don't build a house from the roof," which I'd never heard anybody say it quite that way. But yeah, it totally makes sense. It's like people got their budget, they got their people. We're in the news every day. Cybersecurity is in the news every day. They got everything, bought all the things that they asked for. And I feel like as an industry, we just came to this point where we're like, we just come to the realization that there's still a ton of work to do in, being any good with it. So
it's probably Spanish wording that starting the house by the roof, but yeah, now most of the companies have the resources. They have money to spend in cybersecurity. So we think that it's really important to take gradual steps to mature, and don't jump into the most like advanced test that you can find in the market, you need to go step by step, and at the end, with little steps, you manage to reach your goal. There's a lot of technical debt or technical security debt inside of the companies that should be filled step by step, and at the end, small steps make a big advance at the end of the year.
Yeah, and the thing I love about this discussion is that everything we're talking about is really well laid out in the PDFs that we have linked in the show notes. I think I'm probably going to be pointing people to this, because you'd think you wouldn't have to explain the difference between a vulnerability assessment, pen test, red team, all that anymore. But you have great descriptions of each of those, what the goals of them are, all the details of that stuff, and it's laid out really well in these PDFs. So thank you for those resources. I think they're just good general resources that are nice to have.
Yeah, it's something that we're trying to do as a company. So we try to educate also in the cybersecurity, and we're constantly releasing blog posts and resources that could be useful. For example, I think that it was yesterday or the day before, we released a blog post on when and why using Core Impact, and when and why Cobalt Strike. Because, for example, Cobalt Strike, a lot of people talk about it as a penetration testing tool, and when they try to use it for a pen test, specifically for a pen test, it's probably not the best tool. It's really best in class, or probably one of the best to do command and control and to do post exploitation and adversary simulations and red teaming exercises probably. But for this specific case of the pen test, it's probably not the best tool that you can find. So yeah, we try to educate not only also we try to educate on the tools, also on the processes, and try to show the companies where we can help, and there's a lot of them who want to be helped, and what they ask us is, hey, I'm starting on that process. I know that I'm really far away from perfection, but how can you help me? Where am I? So what do I need to improve my security, and where can I start? And this is something that I think that we can do, and we can help them with.
Well said, Pablo. Thanks so much for joining us today on Enterprise Security Weekly.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure to be here again, and I know we'll see each other in the next one.
Absolutely, and one of my favorite topics to discuss, and love that you've got all these resources. I found and posted the link to that when Core Impact, when Cobalt Strike blog post, and I didn't realize that they actually interacted with each other these days. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So thank you very much, Pablo, and make sure you visit securityweekly.com/core security to learn more. Also, check out the show notes. Lots of good links there. If you check out our Discord, you'll find the link to the blog post that we discussed at the end here. And we will be right back in a few moments with the weekly enterprise news.